Hello and welcome to another step-by-step how to tie tutorial video. This is Lefty's Deceiver. For those of you who have been counting along, this is video 100. So in honor of that, I wanted to celebrate by honoring the late and great Lefty Kreh. His contributions, not only in the fly fishing community, have been more than we can ever imagine for, but as a veteran, I have a special spot for him in my heart. He was a World War II veteran as well as a fellow artilleryman like myself. So in honor of Lefty, this is my version. It's an articulated deceiver. What we have here is a little bit of articulated action. We are using a Moonlit ML091. This is a tube fly hook size 4. And in conjunction with that, we are using a extra small 5/8 inch Fisch joint by the Fly Tires Dungeon. For my tying thread, I am using a Dansville waxed Flymaster Plus 140 denier red thread. The body underneath is a Holo-Silver H2O flash by the Fly Tires Dungeon. The beard underneath is also by the Fly Tires Dungeon. This is a red Northern Lights flash. And of course the tail is a white saddle hackle. And the main wing is a white bucktail. We have some stick-on eyes for the yellow and black. And across the sides we have some accents of a Mirage tinsel. This is a medium opal. So let's go ahead and remove our sample, and we can secure our blank hook in the vise. Just like so. And like all good flies, this will begin with a single wrap of thread. We're going to start that right behind the eye of the hook and continue our thread wraps towards the bend, stopping midway to trim off our tag end. What we're going to do is we're going to build this little thread base, working our way from the front to the rear, taking our thread all the way to the bend. At this point, I have 5 hackle feathers randomly selected, randomly arranged, and I have the tips more or less aligned. I'm just going to take this about a hook, 2 hooks length, sticking out past, because our hook's length here is only half of the fly, or a good portion of the fly, so we do want a nice full tail sticking out the back end. We'll go ahead and bump our thread forward and secure our hackle up front with a couple of locking wraps. And let's go ahead and just trim off the waist. We'll clean this up a little bit, keeping our body nice and even. And while we're in the back, we're going to take some of our Holo-Silver body for our body material. Give that a trim. And I don't know, what do I have? About 6, 7, 8 strands or so. I'm going to tie that in the back, all the way to the rear, and run our thread forward. Alright, at this time we can palmer on our silver flash, and I'm going to work my way back and forth because I have these nice long strands, and when I do my return, the wraps overlap and crisscross, giving us a nice full saturated covering of the body itself. Once we get our material all the way to the rear, we'll turn and burn, shift gears, and go forward once again, making sure we get full coverage. Here we go, nice and tight. Using both hands, palmering this all the way to our thread up front, where we can secure that. Couple tight locking wraps. Excellent. Let's go ahead and trim off our excess. And we're going to build a small little head up front. Doesn't take much. We'll come in with our whip finish. 1, 2, 3 turns. And trim off our tying thread. So that covers the rear aspect of the fly. We're going to add a little drop of head cement. Nothing wrong with a little insurance policy back there holding that thread nice and tight. So a little dab of glue. Alright, now we can take our 5/8 fish joint. We're going to attach that to the eye of the hook itself. There we go. Alright, we're going to bump our hook back and use our vise to grab that fish joint. And I have a couple little magnets to help hold that hook safe and secure out of the way. We'll come back in with our tying thread and we'll start that on our fish joint. Taking our thread all the way to the rear. And that's going to be where we want it. Leaving ourselves just a little bit of room for that back end to swivel and swing around. Again, just a little dab of head cement underneath all this will really help keep everything tight and secure. Again, you know, a little added insurance policy will not hurt. Alright, let's go ahead and spin our thread counterclockwise, get it to lay nice and flat. Let it soak into that head cement. You can see it kind of bubble and push around. Up front, I'm going to take some figure 8 wraps around this front portion. Here we go. Alright, taking our thread most of the way back, we'll come in with our bucktail. I went ahead and trimmed it off, ran it through my hair stacker. I got this nice big clump, I'd say a thin pencil's worth. I'm going to take this and I'm going to break this into thirds, because I'm going to lay this bucktail in on the top and on both sides. So thin that out quite a bit. Alright, we're going to tie this in so when it lays down it's not quite the tail, but it is the body and the wing. We'll take a couple locking wraps and give that a trim. Nice and close. Give it a couple more securing wraps, and that's our top portion dedicated. Okay, same thing. I'm going to come in with the sides. Nice and stacked already through the magic of television. Alright, let's go ahead and tie this in on the near side of the hook. Then a nice angled trim. This will help us with our taper. We'll keep building that up. Nice even cone head up front is what we want ultimately in the end. Alright, the final piece of the operation here for our deer hair, our bucktail. We'll go ahead and just take a pinch and tie that in on the far side of this shank. Excellent. Trim off our excess. And we'll just take a moment to lock all of this fun goodness down. Remember, every now and then, go ahead and just give this bobbin a spin counterclockwise or anti-clockwise, and that will help smooth everything out. It'll make your material and lay it flat for you. Alright, let's come in with our red Northern Lights flash. I'm going to take but just one strand, that's all we need. And we're going to fold that over once and make that into 2. Fold it over again, and 2 will become 4. One last fold, and we'll make that 8 is great. All right, let's go ahead and take this now. We're going to tie this in underneath. This is our little beard, and I don't want this to go too far back. Just a little pinch. We'll just take a initial bite and our second securing wrap, and we'll just take a moment and make sure everything's evenly distributed underneath. Once we're satisfied with that, we can take a couple more wraps and just trim off our excess. Nice. All right. Next, we're going to take our Mirage Opal Tinsel. And we want this to extend a little bit beyond the tail. And for this particular arrangement, I found that about 3 inches is pretty close. So I'm going to tie this in a little bit longer, with the fact that I will be trimming this up here in just a moment. All right, so this is going to run right down the side. We're going to just take a few wraps and fold that over and add that into the mix. All right, same thing on the other side. Measure out about 3 inches or so. We're going to tie this in on the far side, right along the side. This is our side racing stripe, little cheek, or accent. This is what will drive the fish bonkers. All right, we'll just take a couple turns, make sure we got this where we want it. I'm going to bump that down just a little bit. A couple more turns, and I'm going to fold the little tab back. This will help lock that in. Keep that red crystal, that red flash out of the way. Always good to just take a moment and double check your work. All right, one last turn all the way up the head. Give our thread a nice flat texture to it. Working our way from the front to the rear, covering everything up. There we go. All right, let's come in with our whip finish. I'll give that the old 1, 2, 3 turns. And it looks like I got one little piece of Northern Lights stuck in there, so we'll go ahead and just pluck that out. Tighten our thread and trim it off. All right, next we have to glue on our eyes. But before we glue on our eyes, we're going to adjust our head, and we're going to squish it down with our scissors. This will give us a slightly flatter surface for our eyes to adhere to. With the eyes ready, I'm just going to add a little dab of glue. Taking my time. I'm going to place my eye right up front, looking forward. I like it. All right, we're going to repeat the process on the other side, same as the first. Let's go ahead and just add a little dab of glue. And we'll get our eye ready. Excellent. We'll just stick that on. I like that. All right, let's go ahead and come in with our UV head cement. I'll be using Solar Res. This is the Flex. And to apply it initially, I'm just going to dab it on, and then I will come in with my bodkin and just kind of level it all out. So just little dabs at a time. I just want a nice even distribution, and this stuff is pretty good. It levels itself out fairly well without having any big bumps. If I can just get the initial bit of it down, we can come in with our bodkin and clean it all up. I think we're doing pretty good. I'm just going to give that a moment to level itself out. Got one little drop, one little bump up here. There we go. I think that's nice and smooth. We'll go ahead and zap it with our ultraviolet light. This will secure everything down and leave us with a nice head up front. Alright, ultimately I'm going to give that a few more seconds there with the ultraviolet light, but for display purposes, we'll go ahead and just finish things off. We'll secure our fly. We want to trim our Mirage tinsel in the back to be the same length. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to trim it at an angle. Here we go, just a little bit beyond the tail. There we go, full articulated Lefty's Deceiver in honor of the late and great. Alright everybody, thank you for tuning in. Happy tying, and in honor of Lefty, tight lines.